All right, everyone, it is yay. I can screen share. All right, everybody, welcome to Quality in a Nutshell. This is a workshop for new staff, new organizations to the quality scene and folks who need a refresher. It will be facilitated by myself, Antonio, Felicia, and Mike, our BLOCS team. We are excited to be here with you today. Our agenda for this morning is welcome and intro to the agenda, our learning objectives. We'll have an icebreaker. Then we'll get down to quality and what it is and why does it matter. And then we will present a recipe for building quality activities for young people. Then we're going to have a breakout we call expert groups, and the groups will report out, and then we'll get on to questions and a reflection to end our show. Our learning objectives for the day are that you all will learn why quality matters, and that you'll get an idea of how we define quality. And you're going to learn some key ingredients to building a quality activity and talk about how that works for you. Before we get started into our program, we're going to start off with an icebreaker. Mike, you want to carry away?
Thanks, TJ. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. And I thought since today was quality in a nutshell, instead of having an icebreaker, I would just call it a nutcracker. So, and also, you know, just a precursor for the holidays coming up. If you're like me and my wife, we are excited to bring some joy into our household. So we've started decorating before Thanksgiving, which I was on the fence about, but I can get behind it now because of 2020, right? So for today's Nutcracker, I would like to invite you all to go into just a small breakout group session. We'll be in there for about 7 minutes, and our task today, this morning, hopefully it's fun, but today is Thursday, and then for those who are in the social media world, there's a popular hashtag, Throwback Thursday. So I thought it would be fun if we are in our breakout sessions to introduce ourselves, your name, your organization, your position, but then also if you have a photo from the past, any time in the past, that's fun that you would like to share and, you know, attempt to, you know, put up on your screen. Feel free to do so, just to give those in the room a little portal into your world outside of the Zoom meetings and this meeting in general. So Felicia, will you go ahead, put us into some random breakout rooms, introduce yourselves, and then find a fun photo that you would like to share, and we'll come back and begin our session.
All right, here we go. Please accept your breakout rooms. We have 5 minutes. Hello, everybody. So while everyone else is in their breakout rooms for about 5 minutes, so that there is not dead space in the recording, I try and provide announcements or some sort of other information during this time, right? So, hi, everybody. I'm Felicia Williams-Young. I am from Metro United Way, a part of BLOCS. I provide training and professional development for those in the community who work with youth. So today, we're going to be talking about quality in a nutshell. And we have a lot of new folks, new providers, new churches, and new after-school programs, and people in the community who stepped up and said, hey, look, I want to help out during this pandemic. I want to open up a community learning hub. I want to provide these kinds of services. And therefore, we thought it would be great if we could provide some sort of framework for everybody, or a recipe, as it were, for everyone to be able to go by as they are providing quality instructional services to youth in our community. So without further ado, I will go ahead at this point and I will allow you all to listen to music. Everyone should be back together in about 3 minutes.
I was kicked out of my breakout group, Felicia. Sorry. Uh-oh. I can't hear you. I believe 3.
Okay.
I tried to read the lips. I think 3 with Becca and Cheryl.
Let's see.
And Nancy.
Cheryl. Oh, yeah, that is breakout room 3. I will move you back. Just give me a second. Oh, no worries. Thank you for joining us today.
you cut us off too soon.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully everyone was able to see some good memories, and even apologize if you didn't get a chance to share, but just seeing some good times in a time where we've been experiencing so much darkness and uncertainty. Hopefully that was just a way to kind of brighten your day at the start of the day, and just kick us off. And if we have maybe some time at the end, for those who didn't share, maybe we can see if we can. But thank you all for participating. And I'll turn it back over to TJ or Felicia to lead us through the next part.
That would be me, Mike. All right, whoever had you're on mute on the Zoom bingo card, please mark that one off because I started on mute. All right, thank you, Mike, for the Throwback Thursday Nutcracker. All right, I still think that's hilarious that it's not an icebreaker, but a nutcracker. So let me get this party started on quality. So what is quality when it comes to youth development programs? And for BLOCS, the first step that you need to understand is we measure quality at the activity level. It's not about organizational standards. It's really about the practices and the ingredients of activities in your program facilitated by adults with groups of young people, right? And how we look at that is, are young people participating in the activity? Do they feel safe? Do they feel supported? Are they engaged? Is the activity interactive and positive? And does the activity promote learning? Ultimately, for us, the quality measurement of whether an activity is measured by whether an activity promotes learning. Is this, just an activity to keep kids busy, or is it an activity that allows them the opportunity to learn while they're being busy, right? And why does quality matter? Well, quality matters, first of all, because it's malleable. That's a big word that, let's not get in trouble. That's a big word. But what it means is that we can, we have the power to affect whether quality changes, whether quality is improved. And that power is really simple. It's really the knowledge and capacity to build an activity based on a set of ingredients, right? But the most important piece is that quality makes a difference, because, what we're on year 7 of BLOCS, what we have found, the data that we've collected from our 109 sites and 56 different organizations participating in measuring quality and measuring youth outcomes, is that quality makes a difference. The higher the quality of the program, the more that young people are building skills that will help them to be successful in school, at home, in the neighborhood, and in life, right? So the big takeaway is that quality matters, because it really positively affects the outcomes of the young people that we're working with. Next, we're going to get into the 4 main ingredients of quality programs. And Felicia Williams-Young, our most excellent senior manager for educational training and development, is going to start us off with ingredient number 1, a safe environment. Felicia?
Hey,
ready?
everybody. Good morning. Just as a reminder, a couple of things. The first thing is, I don't know if TJ gave the announcements before we started this morning, but the first announcement is, actually, there's two. The first announcement is this is being recorded. It will go on our YouTube page. So for all of your staff and volunteers who could not be a part of the call, they can still watch it. It'll probably go on our YouTube page by Monday, so you can share it far and wide for anybody who wasn't able to be on here. That was one of the questions in the chat. The second thing that I wanted to mention is if you would, could you put your name and your email address in the chat? We do that for a couple reasons. One, because we want to keep track of who was on the call, as well as once we start talking and you may meet a friend and you'll want to know who was on the call, because you may want to reach out to them for partnership later. All right, so that is my plug for what's happening today. So if TJ already said it, I apologize, but it's always good to hear it twice, right? All right, so TJ, if you would give me to the next slide. All right, so we have all seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We've seen it in, who's flipping me too quick? All right, so we've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And at the very basic level is the physiological, right? Kids need food, kids need shelter. They need the very basics. And if they don't have it, then the rest of their foundation becomes shaky as they go up, right? So we're hoping that they have food, and we're hoping that they have shelter, and that their physiological needs at the very bottom, their foundation is met. But we also need to, as a program, think about the safety, their safety and emotional needs, right? So what does safety and emotional look like for youth? All right, TJ. All right, so in a virtual environment, these are some of the things. So if you don't have an in-person, or if you do, if you have both, if you are doing some things virtually, this next slide will tell us some of the things that will help our youth stay safe virtually. Go ahead. All right, so making sure that parents and youth know the time for your program, right? Nothing is more challenging and gets us off kilter if we've missed something, right? So if they know that every Wednesday at 4 you all are going to meet, they can look forward to that time. But if this week it's 4 o'clock, next week it's 3 o'clock, next week it's 2 o'clock, and it just kind of, and nobody knows, and then they miss it, then they're off kilter, and that is very harmful to the relationship with both the student as well as the parent and the program. So just thinking about making sure that your virtual schedule is intact, that there are some safety features that are put on whatever platform you choose. That could be Teams, that could be Google Meet, that could be Zoom. There are safety measures that can be put on every one of those platforms, and choose the platform and the features based on your group size, right? So, and make sure that your staff is knowledgeable about how to use it. If you are using Zoom and your staff doesn't know how to use Zoom, there are some videos that Zoom produces. There are some videos that we as BLOCS have produced. We want to make sure that everybody has what they need to provide the services to youth in our community. So these are some of the things. I won't read them all. You will receive this PowerPoint after the training. You will get this. So these are kind of like your checklist. Use this as your checklist to make sure that you're doing everything, make sure it's well lit and your camera's on. Right now, I'm checking my lighting, right? I just turned on my light. I'm trying to make sure that I'm in a well lit place with my camera on. I keep unlocking my door and locking my door to kind of see how the lighting is, right? So we want to make sure that all of those are in place. Background noise at minimal. I am apologizing in advance. I have some people working at my house and they're running up and down my basement stairs. So, that's an example of making sure that background noise is at a minimum. I'm about to go and have a conversation with them, but in the meanwhile, just making sure that those are in place. All right, TJ. Yep. So make sure the other part of that emotional safety piece is make sure that all activities and breakout groups are monitored by an adult. Make sure that the kids can't share in private chat because they may be sending some inappropriate pictures. Making sure that group norms and expectations are in place. That the youth have access to the platform, have access to required materials prior to the session, and that everything is communicated in such a way that we can keep conflicts from arising. So there are specific things that can take place in a virtual setting, and now we're going to talk about what does in-person look like. All right. So these are the 4 things that we're going to talk about for building structure and emotional safety in your programs. We're going to talk about establishing routines, how to define your goals and objectives, how to create a space that works, and how to reinforce the structure that you've just put in place. All right. So as we talk about establishing routines, what is a routine? What does that mean? Youth should be able to anticipate what is coming next, right? So what that means is it establishes and it increases their feeling of safety and comfort. If youth know what's coming next, right? When I come in, what am I supposed to do? Then what? And then what? And then what? It becomes a routine. They begin to know what to expect. If they have no idea what's happening, what about snack? What time is snack? Every 15 minutes, somebody's going to be asking, what time is snack? But if they have that routine and that flow and they know when to expect certain things, students arrives at 4, then they put away their things, then they have a snack, and then there's a group activity, and then, you understand what I mean? So just making sure that that routine is in place. I suggest that you create and post the schedule. If they've forgotten or if somebody is new, they should be able to look at the schedule and know what's coming next. So if it's 3:45, they should be able to know that at 4 o'clock, that's going to be snack time. God bless you, Tom. And don't forget, ask for youth input in your routines. If you're making snack right before they leave at 5:55 and they leave at 6 o'clock, if they've gone all day without a snack, that might be uncomfortable for them, right? But if they suggest, hey, why don't we have snack at 3 because my mom picks me up at 5:30, you know what I mean? So asking them about the routines is helpful. All right, TJ. When putting a schedule together, these are the things to keep in mind, to consider, to help you as you're planning, right? What are going to be those offerings, right? What do you want them to learn, and making sure it's intentional? Making sure providing, are you providing a healthy food and drink snack option? Some sort of structure around gathering and, your opening time, your gathering time together in groups. Make time to plan and reflect. Put that in your program planning protocol. There needs to be time for youth to plan and to reflect. think about how to mix the kids up in groups. If you think about the Nutcracker activity, we broke you all up into groups so that you know, everybody would have an opportunity to chat with the other folks. So I just saw, I assumed that this would apply to its established behavior norms as well. Yes, and we're going to talk about that. Go ahead, TJ. Right? So as we move forward, we're going to talk about the 4 pieces. One piece of building structure is creating a space that works. What does that mean, creating a space that works? It means that the physical structure of your program space is important. That means that the furniture should fit for the students. Their ability to reach and access things should be with the youth and the children in mind. It also means having the space safe and free of hazards and, you know, in kind of safety concerns, making sure that everything is properly lit, well ventilated. Is there heat? Is there air conditioning in the summer, or, you know, and making sure it's secure from threats. And so what that means is are the doors locked? Are the doors, is a staff member in between the door and the youth? Helping them feel emotionally safe and secure is going to be very helpful as we create a safe environment. Go ahead. So the next piece of it is communicating. Before I talk about that, I do want to go back to the defining the goals and the, give me 30 seconds. I wanted to see, nope, I don't have a note on it, but I want to talk about defining goals and objectives, right? So part of safety is the physical piece of it. It's also defining for the youth what they are doing or are expected to do while they're there as it relates to a learning objective or goal, right? So they know what they're going to do. They also need to know what they should be learning that day. So whatever you're intending for them, whatever activity that you're planning for them, you need to be providing a purpose, right? Why are they there? Even if it's for NTI support, it should be acknowledged or, you know, told to them that this is why you're here. We're here to get this done. If they're learning something, we are going to learn this today. If it's an activity, we are going to do this activity. And I hope you get something from it and you can verbalize that, because you want them to know if they accomplished or if they learned something that day. Soon as the student gets in the car, they're going to ask, the parent's going to ask that question, did you learn anything today? And we hope that they do. So I wanted to put a plug in that. The next 2 pieces are guidelines. Guidelines, rules, and expectations have to be communicated. Guidelines are fluid. Rules have to be consistent. Next. All right. So when we talk about guidelines, we are talking about things such as guidelines are those kinds of things about the way participants should be acting, right? In terms of how should they be presenting themselves when a presenter comes, right? Behavior during their work, homework, how does that, the NTI, how does that look? Using the materials. Guidelines are fluid and can change based on the situation, right? But they need to be set and they need to be clear. You can use these materials at this time, or you can use materials if you ask, or, you know what I mean? Those are guidelines. They are they meet the expectations for the youth, right? For example, if you go to a friend's house, let's say your furnace goes out, it's cold, you go to your friend's house for 4 days. They don't tell you anything. They don't tell you if you have access to their food or their kitchen. They don't tell you if if you can use their cable or their Wi-Fi. They don't give you any kind of information, right? And now you're uncomfortable because you're in somebody else's space. You don't know what you can touch. You don't know what you can eat. You don't know when you can take a shower. You don't know what time you're supposed to go to bed. Now you're uncomfortable and you're off kilter. It's the same thing with the youth in your space. You have to provide them with some guidelines so that they know what they can use. They know what they can touch. They know what they can do. That becomes helpful. Go ahead, TJ. And the rules. Go back one, TJ. Sorry about that. So guidelines are fluid. Rules, let's talk about rules. Rules are set by adults, but they meet the needs of youth. And what I mean by that is rules are set for safety, right? So, and they need to be written, somewhere posted, and they need to be communicated. So rules can be things like avoid negative language, right? It's posted somewhere, no slurs, no derogatory comments, no name calling, whatever. That's a rule. That doesn't change. That is the way we roll around here. Another rule could be something like, let everyone define their own identity. No one can define whether I am a he or a her other than me. That's a rule. Let everyone define their own identity. Another one could be just as simple as no boys in the girls' bathroom, no girls in the boys' bathroom. That's a rule. It doesn't change. That's the rule. It's for safety, right? Communicate behavior expectations, as well as communicate your expectations for behavior. So behavior could be the way that they act, and behavior can be academically. So if you want high achievement, you got to tell them what those expectations are. I expect you to complete all your work to the best of your ability. I expect you to, right? So guidelines, rules, your expectations, and communicate. If anything changes, you need to communicate that. So whether the child is 9 or 19, the structure you build and the limits you set will establish through communication. My little thing is out of order. So whether the child is 9 or 19, the structure you build and the limits you establish will only be effective if they are consistently communicated and maintained. So I want you to think about that as we talk about or think about safety. Yep. That last part, it's going to come, this right here comes from our the emotional safety part of a tool. I'm not going to go over this. I wanted you to have it so that you can kind of later on, as you're thinking about you're building out your program, you can make sure that you have these things. So that's the reason it's here. I'm not going to cover it. I covered the majority of it or all of it in my previous presentation. But when you see this, you'll be able to see the emotional what part of safety and emotional safety there is. Set rules related to boys and girls is a bit challenging. I acknowledge that. What happens is, it's how you, hate to say it like this, but it's how you identify. So if you, to me, and this is just for me, if you identify as a girl, then that's your identity, and that's kind of, I hate to say it, the rules that you go by, right? If at your facility you allow transgender girls to use the girls' restroom, it's the same thing, right? However you identify is, and you set the rules based on your program, right? So one program may require, the rules are set by the adults, and you'll set them based on what's best for you. For your particular site, Louisville Youth Group, I absolutely, whatever rules you go by, I will support whatever those are. All right, we are upgrading. Is that you, TJ? Or is that me? That's me. All right. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Felicia. Ingredient number one, safe environment, both physical and emotional safety. Ingredient number two in this quality youth program recipe is a supportive environment. And Mike Deegan, our manager of policy and research, will be taking over. Mike, you ready?
Yeah, will you please stop sharing and I'll pull up my screen.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Felicia. And welcome again, everybody. I am Mike Deegan, Manager of Policy and Research at Metro United Way. And this next section, we will look over why supportive environment is important, then what a supportive environment is, and then I'll wrap up with a few examples that it'll be a bit interactive, so I'll explain when we get to that point. But let's go ahead and start off by thinking about why does a supportive environment matter? And one of the things that I really want us to just be aware of is that the supportive environment and the safe environment that Felicia just presented on, as youth development workers, as the adults in the room, these are the two areas in which we have the most agency over. We have the most control over setting up these environments for our youth. How are we managing our environment so it's the most conducive for learning? Creating a safe environment, these are things that we have the power to do. When we're back in, in-person programming, Felicia referenced the program quality assessment tool that we use at BLOCS. Those of you who are familiar with that, a lot of the low-hanging fruit for getting high scores on that in that area are things like, do you have an emergency route in place? Do you have access to water and for all youth? A charged fire extinguisher, etc. Are your entry points in and out of the building monitored? Things like that. Supportive environment is very much the same, but now it kind of really brings the agency and the interactions of the youth worker and the child, the student, the young person with whom we're working with. And so relationships really start to play a big role, and we're all aware as youth development workers and as people how important those quality relationships are, those trusting, positive, committed relationships that we have, to not only providing some goodness in our lives as people, but it's also imperative for setting setting the stage for learning to occur. So when a child is feeling safe, when a child is feeling supportive, you're setting that child up to be in a place where he or she is ready to learn, to build skills. And in the end, that's what we're looking to achieve. And so the relationship part is a huge aspect of providing quality programming improvement. It's not just the content, it's the way in which we interact. And as youth workers, I know we're all aware of how important that is. But one of the other things that I just want to bring up too is there's a whole new wave of science of learning and development that is showing that, you know, how our brain chemistry changes when we are in those safe, supportive environments. And even for youth that are experiencing traumas or, you know, adverse experiences, providing that safe and supportive environment, providing an area in which they know that they have an adult that they can trust and turn to, that switch, that fight or flight switch that is activated when they're experiencing these traumas, that can get turned off just by knowing that I am in a safe, supportive environment when I come to this out of school time program, this after school program, this classroom. So I just want to highlight that. But there's another reason that you know, we in BLOCS are really all for supporting programs in this effort too, for quality. We just recently will be got a report from the Weichert Center that showed longitudinal data that supportive environment in particular was predictive in growing social emotional learning skills in our youth, and we did a 3-year longitudinal study. So, you know, there's actual data that is behind how important really focusing in on quality practices in supportive environment are, and the impact that it's actually making with youth. So, elements of supportive environment, it starts with a warm welcome, and this is as simple as welcoming, greeting a youth as soon as he or she walks into the classroom or your programming space, and addressing them by name. It's something that's easy to do, but often gets overlooked. But right from the start, you're setting the tone for the rest of the experience, and you know, as a youth worker myself, I make sure as I'm coming out or as youth are coming into my program that I am greeting each one by name. I'm asking them how they did, how their school day was, etc. Just learning them more outside of just how I know them, and trying to establish that relationship right from the start. And it's easy to do. Session flow is another important aspect of a supportive environment. Felicia touched on this a little bit as well, but making sure that your session starts and ends on time, that you're explaining your activities clearly, and that you're allowing appropriate time for each of the activities that you've planned, giving that predictability, that sense of routine, and just, you know, mitigating that uncertainty that a child may or may, you know, not be experiencing outside of your programming space as well. Active engagement is another one. So active engagement ties into the active learning experience that we hope for our youth, because, you know, active learning occurs when young people are actually processing rather than passively receiving information, right? And when they're doing this, learning is occurring, because that engagement keeps the knowledge coming from within that youth, that intrinsic motivation, which I'll get to in another point coming up. But active engagement, youth are engaging with the materials or the ideas that you have within your activity. They're looking to improve upon a skill, and as the youth development worker, we're helping guide them through complicated tasks, maybe breaking them down into manageable steps and challenging them. And just as important for youth to be able to talk about what they're experiencing, what those ideas are, to be working in small groups, and really building a sense of working together as a team for something that's greater. And then to go along with this, so taking this active engagement idea to the next level, skill building. So learning, can involve gaining information, using information in new ways, improving physical, technical, or social skills. And the key here is that we're giving the youth opportunities to grow and to challenge themselves. So, the idea that in order for it to be a challenging, engaging environment, we want to provide them with an opportunity to reach above, outside of their comfort zone, so they have something to strive for. And so identifying that specific learning focus of an activity is crucial. Not just saying we're going to play basketball today, but maybe it's we want to work on our 3-point shots, and that's our focus. And what are the technical skills needed for that? What are the team skills we need to create those opportunities? And then how can we scaffold our learning environment around that, right? And then we have encouragement. So this, again, goes back to that active engagement, that intrinsic motivation for youth. Encouragement, mixing praise and non-evaluative language. That's the important part here. So not just saying, good job, TJ. It's saying, TJ, I really like how you're following through on your 3-point shots. All right, that's gonna give you more success in games. All right, and then asking those open-ended questions, not the right or wrong, yes or no, ones that encourage youth to think about a topic or a concept, and having them being more of the agent of that learning and discovery, rather than it coming from a teacher, a youth worker, an adult. So now I have 3 examples that I would like us all to kind of engage in. And the way I think that I'd like this to work is in the chat box, we'll look at a scenario and then rate it as a 1, a 3, or a 5. And so we will put in the chat box a 1 if you don't think that this is evidence of the supportive item listed, 3 if you think it's an okay example, or 5 if you think it's a great example. Okay, so let's give it a shot. I'll see if I can view the chat while I'm doing this too. So the first one, so in the chat, a 1, 3, or 5. This is youth engaging with materials or ideas. And the scenario is the majority of the session that we're observing is a discussion about gender roles. All youth are participating in sharing their opinions and in debating points with others. There are no other materials other than markers and poster paper used to take notes. So if you saw this, what would you score this? 1 being not a good example of youth engaging, 3 an okay, or 5 as a great example. And I'll give, let's just say 30 seconds. Go ahead and put in your answers and I'll pop up the score. Don't overthink it either. Okay, seeing a lot of 3s. Anyone disagree with the 3? All right, so this is a 5. This is actually a good example. And so here's, Allison, do you want to unmute and just explain why you rated it a 5? That's the correct answer.
Yeah. So with the BLOCS program, things are better if the youth are engaging and creating as opposed to the adults. And I see that most of the session was used, which is great. Mm-hmm. They had a great discussion. All the youth were sharing, and that's youth engagement is spot on.
Yeah. That's right. And thank you very much. And that's exactly what we're looking to do. And again, you know, we can get these little snapshots of what an example might be. So again, try not to overthink it, but yes, this is spot on. This is youth engaging with an idea about gender roles. They're participating, they're working in small groups, they're working to discuss. And there's no sort of direct down, this is how we need to be thinking about it. It's all group led and led by the youth. So I have two more. Let's try this next one. So this is for skill building, and we're looking, does the staff identify a learning focus? All right, so the staff announces to the group, today we are going to be building rockets, to build rockets and fly them outdoors. There's no mention of what they will be learning or the goal of this activity. So 30 seconds, 1, 3, or 5, just based on this. All right, I'm seeing some ones. Some ones. Don't be afraid. All right, ones. All right, I think you're getting it. All right, so this is a 1. Does someone who said that it was a 1 want to explain what swayed them to choose that? Antonio, do you want to go ahead and share why you scored it a 1?
Sure, I said 1 because the adult was fully involved in the entire process, and there was no engagement with the youth. They didn't have a choice with anything. It's just, this is what we're going to do, and they don't even know what the learning objectives was or what the point of it was. So that's why I give it 1.
Sure, yeah, exactly. So if we're looking at, you know, what is that learning focus for building a rocket? It sounds cool, and I would probably enjoy doing this, but you know, there's so many specific maybe learning objectives. You know, maybe it's an engineering focus. You know, how can we build a rocket that goes the highest? What sort of things do we need to think about in the construction or the design of our rocket? Depending on the age group, you could pull in mathematics or physics into it, right? And tie it to a specific learning goal instead of just, here's an activity that we're going to do. So that's the whole idea. When you're thinking about the learning focus, bringing it back to my basketball session with TJ, it's like, we're not just going to play basketball, we're going to work on how we can get better at sinking 3-pointers in, and what do I need to teach them in order to do that, right? All right, so last one. Now we're going to encouragement. So staff using non-evaluative language. So the staff says to the youth, great job. I can tell you're thinking about the angle that the light would be hitting the object in your painting. And I love how you use smaller brush strokes for the grass. 1, 3, or 5, 30 seconds. All right, I'm seeing some 3s, I'm seeing some 5s. All right, so the answer is a 5. All right, so do I have someone who wants to explain what their thinking was for this? See, how about Cheryl, would you like to explain? You got it right.
Okay, the reason why I selected 5 because the encouragement, staff uses non-evaluative language. So I see the great job, but also too, the staff person was more descriptive of what that great job is and didn't leave it hanging.
Exactly, and you know, the key here with the non-evaluative language is, yes, it's great to encourage youth by giving them praise, but the danger and the potential detriment that that could have is that if youth are seeing what they're doing as only to get an external reward, that can be detrimental to their improvement and their learning. So if they're only doing it for a grade, if they're only doing it for a prize, if I'm telling TJ, look, you need to score 50 points or else you're not getting ice cream at the end of the game, why is he doing what he's doing? And when we are out there with a learning focus and saying, look, I am affirming that you're doing a good job, that you're doing what I'm looking for, but also those specific things that are highlighting what is good about that performance or execution. That brings it back to the youth. They're saying, okay, I'm getting recognized because of something that I'm thinking about doing or that I'm trying to do that's specific. And that brings it back again into the youth that is trying to improve him or herself for the sake of him or herself and not for the praise or the reward at the end. So, and yes, so I see Allison, yeah, that great job. That's like you're ringing a bell. Like, yes, this is alerting me that I'm doing something right, and then following it up with that specific. That's a great strategy. That's one I use often when I coach. So, all great stuff. Thank you very much. That's the end of this ingredient in our quality recipe, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing and send it back to TJ. Thank you.
That's as smooth as a transition that I am. Now I have to page through yours, Mike. Interaction. So ingredient number 1 was a safe environment. Ingredient number 2 is a supportive environment, and ingredient number 3 is interaction. I just want to pause for a moment just to reinforce some of the great things that Felicia and Mike said, and Megan, I don't know if it was you that referred to some of the really cutting edge research in trauma informed care that's happening right now. There's a great organization in Washington, D.C., led by a medical doctor called Turnaround for Youth. And one of the things that they are studying is basically the science of learning, right? And what they have found is that there are, when it comes to young people, really anyone who has lived with trauma and in the stress that it induces, that it literally affects the inside of the body, right? That trauma and that stress and produces chemicals in the brain that really block learning and that scars the brain. And what the really remarkable thing that's coming out in the research is that scarring is cumulative, and it interferes with processing thoughts and learning, right? But what they have found, and this the remarkable piece is that there is a cure for that accumulated scarring in the brain that blocks learning. And for me, it's really cool because the cure is love, right? The cure is those positive, committed, trusting relationships can literally start de-scarring the brain and allow learning to happen. So there is a cure for trauma, and that cure is love, and providing that safe physical and emotional environment and that supportive, caring, trusting relationship can really help ameliorate this scarring of living in trauma, right? So That is really beautiful. In the other thing that I'd like to say is that what what really quality youth development programs really boils down to is working with young people to provide them opportunities to to practice those skills um, that they need to be successful in life. And you know, and I say this all the time, is if we as an adults just went through an exercise where we started listing the skills that we have that have helped make us successful in our jobs, in our life, in our marriages, or in our relationships, um, none of those are going to be a 2.3 in trigonometry. They're going to be that, I can effectively communicate. I can listen and figure out what the meaning and the impact of what I'm listening to is on me and the person who's talking. One of my favorites, I don't give up when things get hard, right? Those are the skills. I know that if I don't know the answer, somebody else will, and I just need to find them, right? Those are the skills that we need to practice, setting goals and creating plans to get to those goals. Those are things that they don't necessarily get to practice at home. They don't necessarily get to practice at school. That we can help create the settings where young people practice those skills. And a lot of the things that we talk about in safe environment, supportive environment, now interaction, and Antonio is going to cover engagement, is setting that stage where we're helping young people by allowing them, giving them an environment where it's safe to fail. Because in our setting, if they make a mistake, we stop and we say, what went wrong? What could you do different next time? Right? They're learning from that, right? Um, so interaction is our next ingredients with that preface. What are the elements of an interactive activity? First, participants have an opportunity to get to know each other with a nutcracker, with an icebreaker. Um, and they work in small groups, right? They work together cooperatively in small groups. Um, the adults in the room acknowledges an achievement, not just with the great job, but with, I really like the way that you really paid attention to the angle the light was coming in on that painting. Or I like the way that you started with the 3 primary colors and created 4 new colors from there. Specific acknowledgement when young people accomplish something. Participants, the young people are given the opportunity to work together in small groups and tasks and activities. We'll dive into that a little bit. They not only have that opportunity to work together, but work together cooperatively on shared projects and activities, either in breakout sessions or in the whole group. The other thing is that staff facilitates group processing of ideas within the and active participation or learning. The whole idea of, and I see this a lot, I saw it a lot when I was in school. Oftentimes it's the adult who's summarizing the lesson, the moral of this activity, when instead of facilitating the young people saying, so what did we do today? What did you learn? What does this mean to you, right? And you're giving them that opportunity to be a critical thinker and think analytically and to determine on their own that A plus B equals C, instead of at the end of the activity us telling them what C is. they were much more likely to learn if we facilitate that conversation and they as a group can form their own opinions and express those, which is an important skill for us adults to be successful in life, that critical thinking, right? The other thing is that we don't often do is when a young person does something that needs to be what that needs to be corrected within a group activity, we typically will say, hey, please stop doing that, right? Instead of, hey, can you stop doing that? Because if you do, then that, right? Explaining the rationale behind stop doing that and giving behavioral expectations as teachable moments. So why is interaction important? Interaction sets the stage for a positive learning experience. Interaction builds community. I often say that, it's really important for us. The research says that the more supports we have in our life, the more families, right? We have a family that hopefully we go home to, that sleep in the same place, that we eat with, that we share holidays with, right? But we also have families wherever we go. We have, in our school, our class, our homeroom, that's a family. And we should look to build community, a shared value of positive relationships within our programs. You are a part of the Canaan Christian Church NTI Hub. We are here together, and while we're here together, there are norms that regulate the way we treat each other and the way we interact, right? Interaction encourages young people to share social and learning experiences with everyone, not just the people that they would choose. That's the importance of using small groups and to come up with creative ways to form those small groups instead of just asking the children to say, hey, we're breaking up in groups of 3. You all pick who you want to be your 3, because you know who they're going to pick. They're going to pick the young people they're most comfortable with. But if we count off and randomly assign those groups of 3, they have to interact with people they wouldn't normally interact with, and keep those group norms in those settings, right? Helps develop those social skills. Interactions builds friendships based on mutual respect, and interaction expects and encourages full participation in activities and the learning. So what does interaction look like? Once again, reinforcing that behavioral expectations are explained up front, developed through group norms and posted for all to see, and reinforced with teachable moments, not because I'm the adult and I said so, but explained in terms of why. If you have 2 snacks, we won't have enough for everyone, right? Interaction is when we open each activity with an icebreaker and give the young people the opportunity to practice sharing about themselves. That, once again, that practice piece, right? We do this for a reason, and to learn about each other, right? One of my favorite examples is the Muhammad Ali Council of Students starts every day with something called New and Good. Each participant at the beginning of the session is asked to share something new or good that has happened to them since the last time they got together, right? And the participants applaud each other, because a lot of times this gives the kids the opportunity to brag about themselves or to really share accomplishments, and the rest of the group applauds each person as they share that new and good. Another favorite activity is, very simple, what animal would you be or why? And giving every young person that opportunity to share what animal is, or uh, being a comic book fan, what's in what the popularity of these, the Marvel universe. Ask each participant to share what superpower if they had a superpower, what would it be and why, right? And you get to learn about people, especially when you not just ask them what superpower, but why would you choose that, right? And once again, you're giving them practice thinking. If they have to explain something, they have to think about it, right? Deeper thinking. Everything is about practice. Other reinforcing the elements are interactive activities. Use small groups determined by the facilitator. This gives young people the opportunity to work on cooperative tasks with defined roles, to get to know each other and practice cooperative learning and leadership skills, right? So if you break a group, break the young people into groups of 4, and you give each person in the group a role. One person's going to be the facilitator, one person's going to be the timekeeper, another person's going to be the note taker, and then the fourth person is going to be the reporter, right? You give them defined roles, they are interdependent, and it gives them practice. That those are leadership skills, right? And it gives them practice with those leadership skills. Staff facilitates group processing of ideas or activity participation or learning, right? You know, after it's important after young people experience something, the British call it dunk and dry off, right? The actual experiential part of the activity is kind of throwing them in the pond, right? And then the dry off is the discussion afterwards. What went well? What didn't go well? What could you do next time for it to go better, right? So that group processing piece. What did you learn today? Or why do you think the rocket didn't take off, right? This allows young people the opportunity to practice those communication skills and critical thinking and analytic thinking and forming opinions and deepening learning. That's the summary of interaction with some of my editorials. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I think the next ingredient of our quality activity recipe is engagement, and Antonio will be leading that. And Antonio, do you want me to continue with the slides? There you are. All right. You ready, Antonio?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Antonio. I'm the manager of educational supports. So I am the one who will more than likely be working with you or reaching out to you regarding anything blocks and any support that you need. I will be that contact person, and I have my email in the chat, so just use that as a reference. Alrighty, so we are on the engagement piece, and as you can see, youth engagement is at the top of the pyramid. So this is the culmination of the pyramid, and it tends to be the most challenging to incorporate because it stands on all the other sections, such as like safe environment, supportive environment, and peer interaction. So without all of those other aspects, you don't have youth engagement. All right. So this is what we're kind of aiming towards. So what is youth engagement? Youth engagement, this is where the youth are decision makers, they are the planners, they are the doers. This is their time to develop, practice, and incorporate skills that they may have learned, through your program, and a time to reflect as well, right? I like to say, like, this is their time to shine. This is the time that we see, what they have, as youth, and see them work in their strengths. And this is also where the adults partner with the youth. Okay, so this isn't just the adults making the schedules and the plans, and then the youth just comply and follow. No, they are involved in the process. Okay, and I like to use the analogy of a coach. So a coach is always on the sidelines. They are never in the game, right? And so the youth, they get to partner, making the plays, and they also get to participate in the game, you know. But the coach never gets into the game. They're only there, as a guide, as a support, and as a resource, right? And that's the same way with us as we work with youth, not to be overly involved, but just always be there to support, right? And okay, and then this is also where you kind of see the fruit of your labor. Like I said, if you have a program and you're working on people, expressing themselves, learning how to present something to them, to their peers, or workforce development, learning how to do handshake. This is where you see all of that stuff come to practice, and it all comes together. All right. So youth engagement is made up of three main ideas. We have planning, we have youth voice and choice, and we have reflection. All right. So we'll start off with planning. So planning, this is when we make time for the youth to learn planning. Planning as a skill, and also to incorporate it as an activity. They should know when and why it's necessary to make a plan, and also how to make a plan, right? So we can just think about our lives, how many plans do we make, or the lack thereof, when we should have made a plan, we didn't make a plan, and then, the outcomes of that. But we want youth to be able to make plans and execute those plans as well. Like the old artist says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we want them to be able to learn how to plan. And it's also like any skill, the more that they practice, the better that they become. So incorporating planning into activities is a good way for them to practice that skill of planning. And so I have a list there. So projects, making smart goals, planning out how to spend their time. Thanksgiving is coming up, and holidays. Like, what are they going to do with that time when they're not in UAR's programs? That's a good way to plan. Next slide. Alrighty, and this is a few strategies to help with that. So brainstorming, we all know what brainstorming is, idea webbing and backwards planning. So brainstorming is really good for if you work with school age or younger youth. They can just, throw out ideas and get those ideas generating. And then the idea webbing is when they take those ideas and start to, connect the pieces and get a framework to work with. And backwards planning, you start with the end and then you work backwards. So that's really good for older youth, as they have more of that abstract thinking development that they have. And one thing you want to go back, and one thing you want to, always keep in mind is to serve as a guide and not do the planning for them. So, just kind of give a prompt or kind of lead them into the planning, but don't, give them the ideas. Let them come up with the ideas themselves. And also remember structure and clear limits. So some ideas may kind of, be a little off or inappropriate, or, can just be out of order. So just make sure that you have those structure and clear limits when it comes to the idea generation and planning. All right. And next we have youth voice and choice. So this is where the partnership comes in to play. You get to hear the youth's ideas and their interests, and this is where you all act together. And there is a difference between voice and choice. So youth voice is where you get their input, you get their feedback. This is where the adults, this is where we listen. Okay, this is where we stop and we figure out what their likes and interests are, what they want to do. This is where they also get a time to plan out what they want to do as far as like leadership roles and different aspects of activities within your program. This is what we're here for. It's for them. We're here for them. So this is where we get to know what they want. Choice, of course, is just they get to make a decision. They are decision makers, and they also have options, you know, simply put. And then, so we have, it's a ladder, but it's supposed to, like, I couldn't find a ladder, so I just got steps. So these are the steps, you know, to that. So at the bottom, you see there's no voice, okay? So we don't create opportunities to have their input. We don't create opportunities to have their feedback. We're not listening, okay? And this is where a concept called adultism, this is where that comes into play. So adultism is when adults know it all and we're better. You know, we know what the youth want and this is what they're going to do, and we're not taking them into consideration, you know. So we want to avoid adultism and involve them, okay? So the next step is input. So this is where we begin listening. So we listen and we get their perspective, we get their likes and their interests, and we also receive feedback, all right? And then next is choice. So all choices that we present, or the opportunities for choices for the youth, should be open-ended choices. So it shouldn't be the choice of doing something or not doing anything at all. That's not very open-ended, okay? So open-ended choice is where, let's say you're gonna go to the art room. Can you all hear me?
Antonio, there seems to be some background noise. Either is it your speakers, and some folks in the chat said they're having a hard time hearing you. So is there any background noise?
Let me see, just one second. Okay, can you all hear me? Is it better?
Hear you a little better. There's just some sort of, and I don't even know what that sound is, but there's some sort of background noise. I don't know what it is.
I don't have any noise here, so it's got to be coming from the computer then. I'm not sure how to fix that. I don't have any headphones to plug in. Let me see.
Somebody described it like metal, like scratching metal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can fix it. I can try to. I could join from my personal computer. Do we want to do that, or do we just?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do me a favor, Antonio. Yeah, if you wanna jump off and we'll come back to this if that's helpful.
Like that. All right.
All right, y'all. We apologize. You know, things happen. He'll come right back on for you. But in the meanwhile, we have a couple of choices. TJ, do you want to unshare us? If you don't mind. All right, while we're waiting, I know that everybody had to, I gave you all 6 minutes in the breakout room, and some folks didn't get to share. Would anyone like to share who didn't get to share? Whether it was a picture or a memory. Does anybody who didn't get to share, or if you did share and people got a kick out of whatever you shared, do you want to pop on and tell us? I have a picture, but I don't know if it would show up on, because it's on my iPhone. I don't know if it would show up or not. But I found it when I was younger. I was that young whippersnapper. But I don't, let's see if it'll share from sometimes it'll share from my iPhone and sometimes it won't. So I don't know, but while I'm looking for mine, does anybody want to share their picture? Or a memory, it doesn't have to be a picture. Does anybody want to share? We're all friends, come on y'all.
Yeah, I'm Tom Jones. I'm from Casa Latina Catholic Worker House. And I see it, I just shared there, that hard to see. We just put our new sign up on the building, so I don't know if you can see it very
Oh,
well.
awesome, yes, I see the sign.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
Now, where are you all located?
We're at the corner of Floyd and Woodbine. It's the old St. Philip Neri Parish, but it's owned by a trust now. And there's we're right adjacent to La Casita Center and Just Faith Ministries. And then we have the old church, which we use for events during non-COVID times. We've got a few things that go on over there right now, and we're have some plans for the future, but that's us.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited. I see Antonio has, he's come back and then he went back off camera. Antonio, are you ready? Or do I need to come up with my 1989 photo, which I know people don't want to see it, but some folks may get a kick out of it. We'll see. Antonio, are you back yet?
I want to see the photo, really.
It is hilarious. My mom had it at her house and I was like, oh my goodness, please don't show anybody else. I took a screenshot of it.
Oh, great. Antonio can't hear us.
Oh.
Oh, that one begs to be enlarged.
I was, this was the night I graduated from high school. We were on a boat and I was like, oh my goodness. And so for our last hurrah, I went to Manual, not the one here. I went to Manual in Illinois and nobody wanted to part that night. And so we went out on a boat. We spent the night in the school gym. Thank you, Allison. Oh, I love you. We went out on the, we spent the night on the floor of the school gym, all like 300 of us. And then we boarded a boat at 4 a.m. and watched the sun come up all together. And so that was the last hurrah. And so I am excited. I'm wondering if we should, TJ, do you want to take over for the sake of time, or do you want to wait? Does somebody else want to show their pictures?
In the spirit of the season, I have a picture for the
Ooh,
throwback.
Let's
I didn't get to share earlier because I was driving. My job prior to this was a full-time performer. So I don't know if you can see that. I was Mrs. Claus.
Aw.
In the spirit of
Thursday.
So when was that?
2019. Right before I took this job, I was a full-time performer.
Oh,
Wow.
Somebody said that's so cute. You got a compliment.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Since we're doing holiday seasons, this is me, my wife, and 2 grandkids last Christmas in our matching PJs. And look at my hair. It's like I actually had a haircut. I could go to a barber. Antonio, how are you, sir?
Yeah,
Test.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, so I had to do my audio through my phone, but I still have the camera on the computer, so that's how we got to do this.
All right, we're gonna get back to where we left off.
Alrighty, sorry about that, guys. So, let me start. So yeah, so uh, no voice. So I talked about no voice. So this is where we don't get any input or any feedback, and we're not listening at this time with the youth. So we want to avoid that, and also this is where adultism comes in play, and we want to avoid adultism. We want input, and we want the engagement from the youth. So this is where we go into input, where we begin to listen. We begin to listen, and we get their perspective, their likes, and their interest, and we receive feedback from them. All right. And then the next step up is choice, as I was saying. So choices should be open-ended, and it shouldn't be like you either do the activity or you don't. That's not a choice. That's not open-ended. So an open-ended choice is, like I said, you go to the art room and you all are doing like an art project, and they should have a choice. So let's say you all are going to create a family portrait. So you get the choice between, you want to draw the portrait, do you want to paint the portrait, or is there another medium that you would like to use? So they get like 3 different options. And a good way to give them choice is just like to ask the top 3. So if you go into the gym, you could ask the youth, what are, the top 3 activities that you would like to do? And then they get to choose from those 3, So it's based on what their likes and interests are, and they also get to choose from that, okay? And also the choices that you make should be age appropriate. So you wouldn't ask a second grader, how do you want to make a model of the universe, or something like that, when they probably don't even know the planets yet. So make sure all of it is age appropriate for the choices. And then we move up to shared leadership. So this is where the partnership comes into play, and you have youth-led responsibilities. So they are now taking on responsibilities, and they're operating themselves. So this is where a concept comes in called scaffolding. So, as a scaffold, it offers support. And this is where we want to support the youth, but not do everything for the youth, okay? So the scaffold does not do any work. It's just there to support, right? So that's what we need to do as a staff and as the adults working with the youth, is to be there to support and let them lead the way. All right. And also the shared leadership, this is also a place where you can get help with agency problems. You can incorporate the youth with this. So let's say you are having you have low attendance. You can incorporate the youth to help you come up with a recruitment plan. Ask them what their likes and interests are. Ask them, what do their peers like? What's a good idea to recruit their peers and also to retain them? So incorporating them into the process of shared leadership. This is what we look for, and this is what we work for. We want them to have that autonomy, to be able to do those things. All right. Go to the next slide. All righty. And yeah, so these are a couple strategies to incorporate youth voice and choice. So having advisory teams, um, having listening sessions, giving them options for roles during an activity, collaborate on an attention getter, which can be fun. Just different aspects, just to make sure that we get their voice and we get their input, and that they are collaborating with us, and not just us coming up with a plan and then we expect them to just follow, right? Next. And then next we have reflection. So reflection is where youth can evaluate the activities, showcase what they have learned, and also recognize peers, okay? And this is also a place where they reinforce what they have learned. So, once and this is all usually at the end of an activity. So at the end, you can get feedback. Hey, how do you think this went? You can recognize peers. They can notice how someone was very participatory this time around, or someone who was very engaged, someone who helped other youth out. You can recognize peers during this time. And also, I'll say this is a good area to incorporate social emotional learning because they are mindful of their peers and also of their contribution to the group, because they get to reflect and they get to think about, how the youth performed or was active within the activity. And they also get to see how they contributed and how they were active and how they affected the other people that were in the group as well. All right, next slide. And so these are a few strategies to help with reflection. So you have journaling. You can do the showcase where they get to present any crafts or any new ideas that they have learned or want to incorporate. You can use this for feedback and discussion groups, so they can break out into groups and you give them a prompt, hey, what is something that you learned from this and how can you apply it to their lives? And everybody within their groups, they do a round robin. And then mindfulness is also a good one as well. Have them to think about or reflect on something that's centered around an activity that you did. I know that there's a lot of social justice workshops and sessions that people have been incorporating into their program, but just letting them center themselves and find themselves and see how that the social justice issues are impacting them or impacting others around them. Okay, so all these are just a few strategies. This isn't an exhaustive list, but just a good way to start. And also just remember the structure and clear limits. So if they're journaling, sometimes, just pay attention. Sometimes they journal and, be sending inappropriate notes to people or just completely off topic or whatnot. So just set those guidelines for when you do this reflection. And this, sometimes they want to use this to, confront their peers, and this is not the time for that. So just make sure you got the structure. All righty. And then the benefits of youth engagement. So youth are, when youth are engaged and they have ownership of their experience, they come back. As we say that they vote with their feet. So the more, that they are engaged, the higher the attendance rate. And of course, with more attendance, that gives us the greater impact and outcome for them. Okay. So as they come more, they're able to reinforce what they have learned and practice the things and the skills, and that also gives us more opportunity to build those relationships as they come and to also just to reinforce everything with them. All right. And as I see, we have leadership skills that come from youth engagement, self-efficacy. We empower them. We don't take the power away from them, but this is where we empower them, give them the power to lead and to plan their experience. And, and we also include them in this process. All right. So the reason why we all do youth work is for the youth. And it's not just to us, for us to just, get into power struggles or enforce our will on them, but we're wanting them to be engaged and to have that autonomy. And so one example that I have of an agency that does really well with youth engagement would be the Girl Scouts. So, it's coming around that time too, a couple months, when they sell the Girl Scout cookies. You see them out there, they are selling the cookies. The adults are, in the background with them, but they're taking the money. They're getting the change back to you. They're reaching out to you, and very sometimes aggressively and harassing sometimes. But I'm joking. But they get very involved in this process. But they are taking ownership. Like this is essentially their business, So that's a great example of youth engagement and them having that autonomy and self-efficacy. That is it for me.
Okay, guys. We're going to change up the game plan a little bit, and we're going to model the flexibility that we as adults who work with young people have to have as we work within our activities. We're running a little bit on time. Our original plan was to break everybody up into groups and then come and report out. But what I would really like to do now with the rest of the time that we have available is A, answer questions, and B, solicit from you all what do these ingredients look like in the programs that you run and the activities that you run with young people? And are there particular ones that you have a hard time incorporating? And I know that this pandemic has really made a lot of us have to pivot, either to 100% virtual or pause or just hustling to keep all the kids that come up to date on NTI and things. So let's do some brainstorming about what I would love to hear examples of how you all incorporated any of these 4 ingredients into the programs that you're doing now, or, brainstorm and troubleshoot, right? So I'm going to throw it open to the group.
I'm not an educator by training. I'm all completely new to this, and we just started learning how. We do have people involved in our group that are the educators, and one mountain that we're trying to climb is getting that part where you have parental involvement and parental encouragement of the students. And, it's not who parents who did not come up in that kind of tradition of having that. So right now, that's one thing that I'm just kind of struggling with as to how to make something like that happen so that they get reinforcement from their primary source of doing that. Pretty generalized statement, but that's just a thing that I'm working with right now.
I'll jump in first, and I'll invite other folks to jump in thereafter. One of the programs that one of our BLOCS programs is a long-standing program. The area in which they serve, they have low parental involvement. And what I talked about in that safe environment is that expectations have to be set. To be in their program, it is required. There are certain things that are required. It's required that you come to the parental meeting. Unless it's life or death and you give an excuse, you have to be there. Your child can't enroll. There has to be, the expectations are set. You have to attend 3 parent meetings or your child will be out. When there are those expectations and they're set and they're put out there in black and white, they're non-negotiables. In this, maybe they can't come in person, but if you're required to do 3 parent meetings by Zoom, the expectations are there, and there is a consequence if it isn't adhered to. So, and you have to be fine with, I want to be helpful, but I also need the parents who are going to be supports with me. Therefore, and my kids used to be in Cabbage Patch. I just saw Megan come on board, so I'm sure she'll say something for Cabbage Patch. When my kids went to Cabbage Patch, it was required that as a parent, you had to take a tour. You had to, there were just certain things that were ingrained in that system. So I will let Megan take it over so that she can tell what's going on with them now.
Yeah, parent engagement is something we always try to build here. One of the ways is the kids are required to come together. Parent and child have to go through it together. They sit through the behavior codes and expectations together. They sit through the lesson about when we do our classes and what the classes are like. So we know everybody's expectations up front are part of that. One thing we're able to do also is help remove barriers for parents that would prevent them from being more involved. We have once a month what we call patch parent meetings through our family development department. So we come, it starts at 5:30, anytime between 5:30 and 6:30, you can come and you can, we serve a meal. So everybody's eating together. You don't have to worry about getting home, feeding the kids, coming back. We have babysitting through some of our teens for all the littler kids who maybe, we start at 8. Parents like, I don't have anything to do with my itty bitties. What do I do? So they come, they eat together. We play together at the beginning. Then we provide the babysitting for the littlest ones. So the parents can just have an hour of, usually it's an education kind of course. So we've offered like free wills and living trusts through it. Tonight we have one and we're talking about depression and trauma and its effects on suicide prevention. So everybody's together at the beginning. We remove the barriers of needing to feed the kids, where the other ones are going to be, and then we provide that education piece that's helping stabilize families at home too. So wanting the parents to be there is great, but you've got to remove the barriers to the parents actually being involved.
That's beautiful. In really, I do want to make a one point is that a lot of the children that we serve because of the circumstances that they're living in, and we're providing them opportunities within our programs. And the one thing that we don't want to do is create more off-ramps that would limit those children to become a part of our programs. And one way to do that, which was Megan's example of reducing those barriers for parents to become a part. But I also want to, point out what Allison said in the chat is that, support from parents are great. They do almost everything almost without any parental supports, because some children just don't have those or are living in circumstances where the parents just can't, right? And it's our goal, that's why we do business, right? We are creating safe spaces for young people to be where they can have access to those resources, supports, and opportunities they wouldn't have gotten, right? Because of the circumstances they're living with, and the difficulties, that they face, both, structurally, systematically within poverty, etc. So parental involvement is beautiful and is helpful, but it's not always possible. And if that's one of our goals, we have to do things like those great examples that Megan gave. But that's also why we have Quality in a Nutshell, because we want to give you all that knowledge and capacity to provide those supports and learning opportunities to help those young people manage in these circumstances that they are given, right?
TJ.
Yes, sir.
That's why I wanted to say, what y'all call barriers, we call excuses. And what we try to do is take the excuses away from the parents. That's why we take the parents out of the giving them excuses. And when we start our program back up, we take the excuses away from the parents, or the parents out. We pick our kids up, we feed our kids, and we take the kids back home. Because the parents they always have excuses why they can't do for their kids. It's really sad, because the kids need the help, but the parents always come up with excuses. So we take the excuses out to help the kids. So take that barrier out, and we take the excuses out.
Well, it's beautiful. And it sounds like, those barriers or excuses, you've managed to figure out ways to get around them, right? And it's all about the kids and providing them with those resources and opportunities and supports, and you found a way to do it. Other questions? This is the AMA portion of our presentation, right? Y'all know what AMA stands for? All you internet buffs, ask us anything. Well, originally it's ask me anything, but we have a group of 18 experts here together. Throw it out there. No questions. One. That was my comfortable with silence. Go ahead.
Allison.
Yes, Allison.
I thought I would take an opportunity to ask if anybody else is having trouble with programming that's not in. If places are not having in-person programming, if anybody has had some really great strategies for hunting down your parents and guardians for Cascade signatures.
Success stories with Cascade signatures?
Yeah, trying to hunt down parents and guardians, because a lot of the times we connect with our parents and guardians when we connect with their physical children.
Yeah.
There's a Google form. I don't know if, they have to have access, of course, but there's a Google form that's similar that wouldn't require you to actually see the person, if that helps.
Has anybody used that yet and gotten a successful completed Google Doc that Catherine Calisano could read?
And we've shared it with parents. We know parents have filled it out. We haven't seen much from JCPS yet back about it. We collected, when we had kids sign up for our NTI pod, they did a Google Doc to register and had to have email addresses and phone numbers for at least 3 different people in the kiddos' lives that we could reach out to. So we text the parents regularly and kind of establish that as a norm. At least once a week, we send something to them about things that we might need. Are we going to be closed? Here's some community resources you might want to take advantage of. So one of those weeks, when we first got that form, we just sent that to all the parents. We can't see if the parents have filled it out, but we've been told the parents have filled it out because we don't have access to the results on the form. It's a JCPS form, but we're told parents have filled it out. We just haven't seen a change yet in our cascades. So.
Ooh, all right. So there is confirmation that someone has sent the JCPS parent release Google Doc form, and you confirmed from JCPS that they've got completed forms.
No, the parents told us they completed the forms. We've not heard anything from JCPS yet.
All right.
We have also, I'm sorry, I'm LaShondra with LCCC, Louisville Central Community Center. We too have used the Google form, and what's worked well for us, our NTI kids are a lot easier because we can kind of force the parents to do it right there on the spot. But for the Google form, we have a group meet that the parents are in, where just sending out the link did not work. I sent it out in October and no one did it. This time, I kind of explained to them the importance of it and how it helps us help them. I think Cascade does a really good job of giving statistics and outcomes, and that's how we get some of our funding. That's how we get most of our funding, to be quite honest. That's how we get our funding. So in order for our programs to remain free, that's how we get the feedback we need. And I found that a lot of parents did a really good job of getting it back then. I also gave them a deadline. Granted, it was not the deadline that was provided by JCPS, because I know there's always going to be 1 or 2 parents that's like, oh, I forgot. So I gave them a grace period, and I told them that it was due. I set it for Friday by 5 o'clock, and I felt like parents were on it. They felt like the pressure was on to make sure that the programs are free. by signing the paper. I also explained to them that it's only 2 seconds. You just have to let us know that it's okay with you. It's not a survey where you have a lot of questions or it's going to take a lot of time. And I found that once I made that message, a lot of parents went on ahead and did it.
Excellent. Good communication. You know, it reminds me of one of the what the characteristics of interaction, right? You explain instead of tell, right? Um, and we found, I'm surprised Felicia's not smiling, because we found deadlines help, right? Because you know, a lot of people want to, right? And giving them that time period, that cutoff date for the want to, motivates them. The other thing that we find is you know, um, is the follow up. You know, if people know that you're not going to give up until you get what you want, right? Then they're like, oh, you know, I might as well just do this, or TJ's gonna call me every day until I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
In addition, I had the intern to call every parent that wasn't added to the roster. So you can see who has done the Google form if you go into the Cascade link and edit it. I think it says edit roster on the left-hand side, on the bottom left-hand side. It has edit roster. I didn't need to edit anything, but they're very good about putting who has already submitted within 24 hours of their submission. So
wow.
I can see exactly who's on there, and then that's how they get marked off of the call list. So the intern was very, very aggressive about calling about the 5 o'clock deadline.
Excellent. All right. Um, all right, you all. It is 12:29. I really appreciate you all being a part of this exercise. We certainly love, you know, learning and sharing from you all. Um, just this kind of debrief session afterwards. I've learned a lot. I love that we have positive verification that Google Doc parent release from JCPS is actually working. That's really cool. It's confirmation. Um, I'm gonna hand it over to Felicia to say goodbye and make announcements if there are any that need to be made.
Of course, there's always announcements. All right, so everybody, 2 things. Monday, you should receive an email from me, or from BLOCS, not from me, from BLOCS that will announce the December trainings, as well as the December communities of practice. December the 3rd, Louisville Youth Group will be with us to working with youth for who are LGBTQ. And so Colton Grove is going to present. It is, I've already seen the PowerPoint ecstatic about it. December the 10th is our communities of practice. We have Dr. Asha Brown and Dr. Rebecca Bloomer coming to talk about issues in youth work. They have done a great deal of research. They're going to talk about that and some plans for the future as it relates to that. And so December 3rd, put it on your calendar. December 10th, you should receive the registration email on Monday morning, bright and early Monday morning. I appreciate each and every one of you. Next week is Thanksgiving. I am grateful and thankful for all of you being a part of our new family, our BLOCS family, as well as our Community Learning Hub family, our community. You are all, I just appreciate you more than you ever know. Please feel free to reach out to any of us, TJ, Antonio, Mike, or myself. We are here standing at the ready to assist you with whatever you need. So if all minds are clear and all hearts are clear as well, I will bid you adieu.